Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Finding Refuge for the Weary Empath, Understanding Societal Discord and Personal Triggers Through the Lens of the Original Wounds. My name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network. And today I really see as an important call because so many of the people who are on a path of awakening and transformation, we end up more sensitized to the environment. And oftentimes we started more sensitized because we are naturally gravitating towards more empathic ways of being, more connected ways of being. And so, in a world that's really often at loggerheads and conflict and overt warfare, it can be really jarring to be in this world and to keep the capacities and the sensitivities open in a way that doesn't actually do harm to ourselves. So, we're going to get to explore how to do that in a way that has a lot of integrity and depth with one of the field's leading teachers. His name is Dave Markowitz. He's a best-selling author and intuitive healing facilitator. He's taught quite a number of programs for Shift and just always has so much depth and wisdom. So Dave, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. I am super excited to be here.
Great. Well, I want to let everyone know up front that we are going to do this hour with Dave and have some really profound insights and a practice that we're going to share with you. And we have a brand new course called Refuge for the Weary Empath that we'll share more about towards the end of the hour if you are feeling like you would like more tools, more support to navigate these times and really turn your sensitivities into a real blessing on all levels. So Dave, I would love for us to begin our time together with a little bit of your own journey. I think the term "the weary empath" has a lot of there's charge behind that, and I'm sure quite a bit of story as well. That it's like so many people I know are like sometimes like I can't believe I incarnated into this world. It's an intense world, like very conflictual for people who are more sensitized. So maybe share a little bit about your own journey and how you began to transmute some of the weary parts into blessing.
It reminded me of that Saturday Night Live skit where every situation was followed with "What was I thinking?" Right? So I hear you myself and so many people I work with. What was I thinking coming here now? It's just really interesting timing, and like you said, really interesting time. Just everything just seems to be bigger and, of course, more powerful. And for the typical empath, that's quite overwhelming. So there are lots of tools, and many of them we've discussed and practiced, in prior workshops with Shift, and of course with my private clients. Um, One of the things I found, though, is that if someone isn't really solid in themselves, all the tools in the world might be a temporary fix at best.
Mm.
And I equate that to going back. My journey was, how can I be better than I've been, without coming from a place of, oh, who I've been is awful, right? No, not judging the past. I'm really trying to go deeper. My favorite question is one word: why. I always wanted to know why. Why is this happening? Why is that happening? And then people in my family a lot were unhealthy. So I was always saying, why? Why are we unhealthy? What's the challenge? What's actually going on here? So I started out doing massage therapy and didn't really realize anything about intuition at the time, but I started hearing messages like, they're holding anger at their dad in the lower back. And I was like, by any chance, are you? And they look at me, how'd you know that? And I just got more and more intuitive doing that work. And it got to the point where I started seeing mind body medicine as just kind of a given, where repressed emotions created problems in our bodies. The next evolution was learning that I was an empath. After many people said to me, "You're an empath," and me just saying, "No, no, no." For whatever reason, I just didn't want to own the word. And eventually, I had an experience where I got drunk and being in 7 bars in 7 hours, which probably isn't that common, except the fact that I didn't drink anything or no alcohol, at least the entire evening. When I finally got in the cab, Spirit was basically saying, "This is what it means to be an empath." And I said, "Oh, now I get it." So I picked up all the vibes. And we used to hear things like contact high, right? I was picking up all the vibes, but I was feeling drunk. I wouldn't have been able to pass a sobriety test, not having drank any alcohol the entire evening. So it was more why, like, why does this happen? And then I learned about adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, as they're commonly called, where a lot of research is happening more recently about things that happen to us as kids, various forms of trauma, and how that manifests later in life. And what I've learned is that those things don't just manifest generally. There's very specific and really painful situations that come out of that. And again, I'm still saying why? Like, what's underneath it? What's underneath it? When someone says they have a headache, that's not enough for me, right? It's not like let's just take a pill. Why you have the headache? What's going on? Are your neck muscles tight? Are you stressed? Okay, you're stressed. And then sometimes that conversation, years back, that conversation would have ended. I'm like, well, now what are you stressed about? What's underneath it? I keep going underneath and underneath and underneath. And what I found was what I now call the original wounds, which are a series of 4 different separations that we experience sometimes in the first few years of life. And the most amazing thing about these wounds to me was it sort of leveled the playing field in my own head. It showed me that we're all fighting the same battle. Now, granted, it manifests in different ways, but we're all wounded. And then I don't believe there's a such thing as evil, right? There's a lot of talk now. Those people are evil, those bad people over there. And learning about the original wounds really confirmed this very deep knowing within me that no one is born evil. No one looks at a brand new baby and says, oh, yeah, this one, yeah, not too sure about this one. That kind of doesn't happen, right? We're like, oh, look at all this love in this tiny bundle, of life. And these wounds separate us from our true essence. And then those manifest in problems later on. So my work now is all about bringing people to that awareness and showing that people, like in general, like other people aren't evil or wrong or even bad. They're wounded. And I think the more we can remember that, we can actually have compassion for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people just heard that, maybe not yourself, but I think some people might have just heard that and said, why would I have compassion for someone doing bad things or evil things? Because fighting them doesn't work. It never has and it never will. I really believe the only thing that works is love.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone's willing to take it, not everyone's willing to give it, but that love, that compassion, and it comes from this deeper understanding, at least in my understanding, in my world, that we're all fighting the same battles. I mean, I can remember that even people that drive me crazy, particular people in the public eye, for example, if I'm remembering that and processing whatever's coming up for me as a result of that interaction, I'm free. I'm not burdened by all these things that I'm trying to run from. I'm not burdened by that evil person or calling them even worse than that. That's not healthy for me. It doesn't mean to not get angry. It doesn't mean to not have your sadness. It doesn't mean to ignore the fear that's coming up for many people. It means to honor those feelings, but also from the meta perspective, recognize everyone's doing the best they can. Everyone's wounded. I think that was a long answer to your question, but
Yeah, it was a great answer. It's good to have a deep answer rather than just a glib answer. So, I like the original wounds framework because it creates this unifying fabric that we are all part of. Becoming human is to be wounded, and that it's not something that's like we should either flaunt as some badge of honor or avoid saying about ourselves. That it's just part of the human condition, and that does create some real empathy. So I think it'd be useful to go through those 4 original wounds as we can see why they're so universal and then how that starts to inform our development as humans.
okay, great. So the first one is a spiritual disconnection. So as we grow, even from a very young age, we start to fight back, right? Like we hear the phrase terrible twos. I'm not a big fan of that phrase, by the way. It's very judgmental, but just the idea babies want to be free. And they want to experience everything there is to experience. They want to chew on that shoelace and don't see anything wrong with it, right? Um, and as that happens, the ego begins to form. With every wounding, basically a level of armor gets formed around the heart. So it kind of goes layer by layer, like around the soft, tender heart that we're born with. And that's the ego manifest. And as the ego manifests, we lose perception of the connection to spirit. So a lot of times, in my experience at least, it's very difficult to channel and intuit and be creative if I'm in a place of anger and fear. Right? So basically saying spirit and ego don't coexist very well. So as we move along, as that ego forms, we perceive that spirit is less and less with us. Now, of course, we know that's not the case, but that's our perception as a young child. And there's a reason for that. It actually creates a journey. So I'll look at it like creating a void somewhere in the body. You can place it wherever feels right for you. I don't like this like one specific place, but it creates a spiritual void. And then many times, for most people I know at least, we spend much of our lives trying to fill that void. So we grow up in a specific religion. Maybe that works for you, maybe it doesn't. Or we sort of look at that and say, this is limited. I want something different, and go into new age and spirituality kind of practices, whether it's from Peru or from India, or really could be anywhere, obviously. We try to fill that spiritual void. We try to reconnect where we feel separated. And it's normal. Like you said, it's a human experience. And it happens. And because we learn through duality and contrast, we learn who we are by learning who we're not. We learn through opposites. And what better way to find out that we all are one than by separating at some point early in birth? So there's a lot of logic to it, even though it's really painful. And I've learned time and time again, as much as the Dave part of me doesn't like it, pain is normal. We spend so much time, money, and energy trying to avoid pain. It just doesn't work. It hasn't worked yet. And especially when we're trying to push that pain down because that's what we're taught or covered up with medications, it comes out in much worse situations much later on. So there's that spiritual void. That's the first separation. And many people, maybe yourself, myself certainly, I grew up with a certain religion, and it just never really resonated. And then eventually I realized, oh, there are other belief systems that can kind of tap into. And I started studying so many of them and kind of made a little conglomerate of my own thing. And, some might call that spirituality. So there's a reason for that wound, and it creates that distance. And then we spend a lot of time trying to recreate. The second is more of a physical abandonment. And what I'm about to say is not to blame mothers in any way, shape, or form, but it's just the reality. If we're in utero for 9 months and it's warm and it's cozy, we're getting all of our needs met. And one day we come out and those needs aren't met as much, that constant unconditional love isn't there. I totally get, some people didn't have the best in utero experience because their mom was stressed or sick or unwell, or they didn't feel wanted as a child. I get that. But in general, most mothers, I believe, really love their unborn child unconditionally. And that's great. I mean, that's what I think what it should be. But as you know, when we're born, what's the first thing that happens in this country? Hang the baby upside down and spank the feet, get the heart racing. And there's got to be more gentle ways than being spanked into existence, right?
Not the best way to enter the world.
Didn't. And then with like circumcision, and there's just a lot of things that happen when we're really young that, in retrospect, I probably could have done without. Okay, another story. But the point is, and for myself, I had I was born with a digestive disorder. I took on some energy from my mom in utero that created this situation where I couldn't digest food. So I spent the first 10 days of my life basically an incubator. So that physical abandonment was really extreme. I went from being held constantly to held never in the most formative years or days in this case. And that creates a physical abandonment, which then creates a physical abandonment wounding, which we also spend a lot of time trying to heal, often in ways that don't work. So if you've ever been in a relationship that doesn't really meet you, that's one of them. The third original wound is emotional. So when we're really, really young, we often do get unconditional love in at least some amounts. Everyone, crowds around the baby. Oh, how beautiful, how cute, let me hold him, etc. And as time goes on, that gets reduced, and this is not a fault of anyone. And we also learn that a lot of our emotions aren't welcome. So we learn you can't be sad. I'll give you something to cry about. We hear really bad ideas like that. We're totally not allowed to express our anger, our frustration, or our fear. And that creates a lot of emotional repression. And I've found time and time again that every pain and illness that I've worked with has at least some, if not mostly, cause based from emotional depression. So we learned this really early on. And there's another wound, right? Another space, another void of I can't be my authentic self, which is actually a perfect segue to the fourth one, which is the separation from our authentic self. We learn it's not safe to be ourselves, and we begin identifying with the ego mask. And we, at some point, realize, wow, I haven't been authentic. I haven't been in touch with my heart. I haven't been really taking care of my body, and I haven't been connecting with spirit. And these things combined create sort of a playing field that sets us up through this whole thing of separation. These are various descriptions of separation and abandonment, all like we said earlier, to reconnect with ourselves, with each other, with spirit. And big part of healing is that, right? Getting into, if we don't feel safe to say something, for example, to even someone that we're in love with, that's a repression. That's a fear-based
Hmm.
mindset. And I'm not saying it's easy, but what happens if we actually work with that fear versus making it wrong or trying to mentalize it? What happens if we actually process that fear instead, allow it to be there, use it as a messenger? What's going on here? So that's a very basic introduction to
Hmm.
original wounds framework. And for me, it really, again, like we said, it's really exemplifies that we're all wounded. No, I haven't met a person yet who doesn't have all of these wounds. I'm open to
Hmm.
being wrong. I haven't met everyone on the planet, obviously. But when I'm intuiting, I'm hearing this is the plan. We separate you so you can reconnect.
Hmm.
And we know like a part of our goal of being here is to attain that oneness. There's different words for it, sure, but that
Hmm.
oneness with everything, when you're really one with your partner, you feel great. That's your innate connection, being lit up from inside. It's part of you already. When we're free to have our emotional expression, we're not just much healthier, we're much happier. When we're connecting with the spirit, we can do things, you know, you probably never do. I've done so many things where I'm right on the edge of it saying, are you sure I can do this? Talking to source energy. And it's like, I've got you. I've got you. Without that voice inside me, I would not have done so many things. I probably wouldn't be here talking to you right now. I won't say probably. I would not be here talking to you right now if source didn't say, hey, talk to these people at Shift Network, or when you reach out to me, let's work with this. This is important. You have
Hmm.
a gift. We need to get that out in the world. So thank you
Yeah.
for doing that.
I think it's a beautiful framework and it just rings true. As you said, you're not meeting anybody who doesn't have these wounds. And it really is, if we see it in the kind of metaphysical level, that this is part of the separation that makes the reunification meaningful, that it's just part of the journey of incarnation. Do you find that when you sort of just offer people this and they see it in themselves, that it sort of like shifts their frame from away from like feeling like something's wrong with them or something's broken to just that just
Yeah.
more natural part of the human condition?
Yeah. Beautifully said. Thank you. We learn to judge ourselves sometimes in a very big way. And this framework has freed so many people. Wow, I'm not broken. I'm wounded. And there's just such a big difference energetically when you feel into those words broken, bad, just, you know, put them on the shelf kind of thing, right? Wounded. Wow, what can we do for that? How do we heal this wound? Right. So there are a lot of techniques for healing the wound, but without knowing that's the wound underneath everything, creating these abandonments and separations that later show up in life. So, just an example, we often seek a relationship. Why? Well, we want to feel connected. We seek you know, talking to a few hundred people in shift. We seek that connection. So it's always about, for me, it's always about seeking that connection. And if we can connect from the inside out and not just connect, but also work with the blockages to that connection, really kind of breaking down those layers of armor around the heart, getting out of the ego self, getting more into the heart, then we can connect on a much deeper level. So I think most people really are looking for a connection. They're looking for validation that they're not broken, despite what society or the family tells them. And yes, this framework has done that for many people.
Hmm. Beautiful. Well, let's build this into, so we have these four original wounds. Everybody has them. How does this inform understanding of empath and working with being an empath?
Every person has their own sort of coping mechanism. How do you deal with the pain of the separation? How do you deal with childhood wounding? And one of the things, at least everyone that comes to me who's highly empathic, has learned to deal with that by reaching out to other people energetically and learning to connect in that way. So, like we said, we're always looking for connection. What is the vehicle for that? For empaths, it's reaching out energetically. And sometimes, quite often, at least the ones I work with, we don't do it in a very healthy way. We actually do it in a way where we're absorbing energy from other people. So, just a quick example, if I'm, let's say, 5 years old and I notice that my mother is sad, well, part of me going to be silly, goofy, try to get her out of that sadness. And if it works even a little bit, right, my ego identifies you're the silly, goofy one that can make mom laugh, and that becomes an identity. Another thing that we do, and this is how the empaths work, is we sense. For this, we'll stay with the same example, and I'll stay first person. If I see my mom sad, and I can take on some of her sadness energetically, and I notice even the slightest bit of improvement in her energy field, how she's feeling, what she's saying, how she's being, my ego then identifies with that. I'm the person that takes on energy. I'm responsible for other people's energy. I'm responsible for what happens in the room. This also happens when we're even younger, when we're just, I guess it could happen at any age, but when we cry, for example, as a baby, people around the baby get worried. When we're happy as a baby, people around us get happy. So the mind is always forming ideas on who we are based on what's happening in our experience. And what I've found is that this belief system that is created, it says, I'm responsible for the thoughts and feelings and emotions of other people. And when that goes to an extreme place, we're not just responsible for them, we actually take them on. We kind of digest them. And what I've found is a lot of people that come to me have absorbed energy from other people. Everyone I've worked with has absorbed from the collective unconscious. Most have absorbed energy from one or both their parents, family members, work associates, and it becomes an identity in some way. So I was able to develop practices for giving that energy back, but also strengthening the self and sort of reimagining what it's like to not be responsible for other people's thoughts, feelings, emotions, and experiences, rather to be present to what's happening, but not with the idea that I have to do something to fix it.
Hmm. I want to ask about a concept that you have brought forward around Measury and how that relates to some of the collective anxieties people are experiencing right now in
Yeah.
connection with the original wounds.
Yeah. Measury is a combination of enmeshment and energy. And you can look it up, but you won't find it because I made it up. Okay. But anyway, so it's this idea that we are sort of like kind of like a Venn diagram. There's you, there's everyone else, and then this kind of space between where everything's kind of, you know, locked in or meshed, basically. That measure is a big part of what keeps people unhappy and unhealthy and not strive and not able to really thrive in the world because we're too attached and overlapping with the energy of other people. So it's just a way of sort of visualizing it. It's a concept of measury. It's a combination of meetings of individual and group energies. And what often happens is we don't know where we end and another person begins, and vice versa. So it's just putting a name to it and really stressing the importance of being sovereign in our own energy. Right. Um, I'll give you a quick example. Maybe you want to do this with me. So if you have your hands out like this, and this is you, and this is someone else, and you bring them together, you might feel some tingling between. That's okay. But what often happens with empaths is we're kind of enmeshed, right? And if you look down at that and wiggle your fingers without really thinking about it, it's hard to really see. Oh, left hand, first finger, that kind of thing. It's really kind of just a big mess, right? This is not healthy. This is over responsibility manifest. The alternative is once we're more healed of this belief system is same kind of thing. We're meeting of the minds, meeting of the spirits, meeting of the souls, meeting of the energies. But then instead of intermeshing, we actually just meet. And what I love about this is it's prayer position or namaste. The light in me sees the light in you. But it's also not intermeshed, right? It's meeting in a healthy way. So you can get really close to someone, but not be too meshed with them. And I think that's a really important goal for a lot of people who get lost. And, like you mentioned, what's happening in the collective, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of fear, tremendous amount of anger. And of course, grief is typically under all of that. So if we're holding fear, anger, and grief of everyone else, how could we possibly be healthy? How could we possibly thrive? How could we possibly be really clear in our intuitive abilities? All this stuff in the way. So it's something to work with and be conscious of.
Hmm. What do we do with the areas where we notice that we're already in that kind of enmeshed state? How do you sort of back out of that?
Well, one of them is a process called return to sender. It's not just a good Elvis Presley song, but it's a process. I know there are other processes called return to sender, but this is what I heard to call it when it came to me 12, 13 years ago, give or take. And it's a way of giving back energy to who it belongs to. But it's done through this very specific process. It's not just I'm going to give it back to the universe because I'm carrying this. You can do that, and I'm not here to judge that. But what I've found is you're not really doing the work, right? So I take people through a process where they actually give back what they're holding to a particular person, to the collective, even to someone who's deceased, done metaphysically, visually. And it's incredibly powerful. And sometimes just in a few minutes, people can have a very different experience. Like they feel lighter, more grounded. And through the repeated processes of this return to sender, your body actually gets a message that it's safe to give back energy. Because right now we're typically holding on to things because that's who the ego believes we are supposed to be. So sometimes, so just kind of give it back very casually. You're not really working on that deeper level. So by continuing to do this through the process where we connect metaphysically to their higher selves, I won't go into the whole thing here, but there's a way of giving it back. And again, I've actually worked with people who have healed from what they were told was depression or anxiety, fatigue, just by doing this one exercise. Because it makes sense if you're holding so much of energy from other people, it's kind of like you're carrying a physical person right on your shoulders, and that's going to get tiring. And for some that are so deep in it, we're holding several people on our shoulders, and that's just not healthy. We just can't thrive that way. So there's
Hmm.
processes for that, but also there's ways of preventing that absorption to begin with. So it's a whole process. We'll definitely go a lot more into this in the 7-week course coming up.
Mm. So once we've sort of started to disentangle some of that enmeshment and become more aligned, what do you see as sort of the right relationship of empaths to this wider societal discord that we're going through?
I think we're natural harmonizers. And in these divided times, that is so key. When we can be a clear vessel for source energy, we'll always know what to do, where to go, what to say or not say, as it were. So we can have this harmonizing effect on anyone that we come in contact with. And you know this, and I'm sure everyone listening has had an experience similar to this, or you just meet someone and they just seem really grounded, just really okay with themselves. They don't really need anything from you. You walk away typically feeling pretty good about yourself, right? So we all have this dynamic. We're sending out energy all the time. So, given that our energy can affect other people, it doesn't make sense for us to be as connected as possible. And, whether you do it professionally or just in family dynamics or just in your day to day, the more connected we can be, the more we can bring that gift out into the world, help others, help and really feel connected and help others connect with other people in their life as well. So I think it's part of the beauty of being empathic is we can tell when someone's in pain. Everyone says fine when you say how you doing, right? It's like a very most empaths hate this conversation, right? Hi, how you doing? Okay, how are you? Like we want to hear like how's your chakras, So
Yeah.
I want to do that at the
That's made me laugh because I always like, yeah, try to avoid
really.
the superficial just ping pong there. It's like, oh, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, it's boring, right? But really, when I check in with someone and say, "How you doing?" I really want to know. I genuinely want to know how they're doing, and even sometimes they might say something, but I can feel something else is true.
Hmm.
And I don't do this invasively. I'm not walking around doing readings for people. I'm not a big fan of that at all, or a fan of that. It's more just being in touch with what they're actually sending. And if I can tune in with my heart, I know where a person is. I know what they need. I know what they need to hear, which may be nothing, which may be they need a hug. They may need, I mean, I don't know. Like if I walk into a situation knowing what people need, I'm not going to be very successful because that's just pure ego. But if I'm really empty and in a place of service and really concerned about someone I'm working with or just someone I'm meeting in a random place, then I can be that bridge for them to be higher in their own energetic field, to raise their vibration, to help them feel seen and heard, to help them feel validated. There's so much power in that. It's just such a gift. And I know that every empath or sensitive or intuitive listening to this has had these experiences where you light up a room, you light up a person's life, you say one thing, you someone contacts you and says 10 years ago you said this to me and you don't remember a thing, but it was really important for them. So we have this natural harmonizing ability. And when we're really, I want to say healed, because I'm not sure how much we get healed, but we're more healed, I'll say, we can be less in our ego self, less in the I know place, and more surrendering to what's actually needed in this moment, what is going to serve this person or this group the most. That's what I do a lot of times in the course. I'll introduce a subject, but then I'll really feel in, say, what does the room need? Because to me, that's more important than what Dave wants to express.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great use of those higher gifts. Well, I know you want to bring us into a bit of a practice to particularly around this working with a society that's gone a little off the rails and how to do that in a way that actually is growthful for us. So you want to take us into a practice now and tee that up?
Yeah, happy to do that. Thank you. I just want to talk about how it works first before bringing people into it. So I think we've all learned probably the hard way that what we resist persists, what we judge gets more energy. And I look at it, if that's true, then the opposite's probably true as well. What we embrace and what we honor softens. It's kind of like working with life on life's terms. And so many of us are fighting life, fighting what's happening, fighting this person, fighting this agenda. And there's a place for that. But sometimes that place is informed by our own wounding. And when we can really process and allow the feelings that are coming up to be there and actually embrace them rather than resist them, we can actually dissipate them. So the act of witnessing and validating a part of our own selves is so powerful. We spoke briefly about it, maybe not in those words before. When we validate someone else, they feel seen and heard. Now, what we want to do is validate our own pain, allow it to be there. I know a lot of times we're just taught push pain away, bury it, work through it. And if that's what's needed, I'm not here to judge that. But what I've seen energetically is that the more we can embrace whatever's coming up for us, the more soft we can be, the more access to our heart we can have, the more we can actually embody the information around the original wounds and realize that everyone around us is wounded and in pain. And if that's the case, what do we want to be in response to that? So, for our own selves, what's happening in society is there are people that are here to help us heal, and we typically don't think of it that way. We're to be like, oh, this person is a blah, blah, blah. They're doing this and this and this. To me, sure, that is important. But what's more important on an individual healing perspective is what is it bringing up within you? And there's a really good chance that it relates to one or more of the original wounds. So, what we're going to do is a brief exercise on meeting whatever comes up for you with love and compassion. I want everyone to think of their pain as a wounded child. What would you do with that wounded child? You wouldn't scold her. You wouldn't make them wrong, ideally. You would love them. You'd validate them. You'd honor whatever they're experiencing. The kid's jumping up and down, you let them jump up and down. If they're stomping their feet and arms, let them do that. They're just moving energy. They're expressing how they feel. And what our generation, I think I'm a little older than you, but people around our generation were taught is to repress that. What I'm going to invite people to do is do the opposite, to actually embrace whatever's coming up for you. And we embrace it just like we would that small child. We allow them to have their experience. Ideally, we give them a hug, but they might not want to be hugged. In which case, we just witness them and we say, it's okay. Whatever you're feeling is okay. Whatever you're experiencing is okay. And this works internally through what some call somatic integration processes, or that's my phrase for it. Some people call it, there's different words for it, but the idea is to allow whatever comes up in response to a particular person or event. I'm going to ask everyone to think of a particular person that drives you crazy. Someone that maybe embodies everything that you don't like in humanity. Someone you may have called particular curse words, various names. Someone you might have wished bad things to happen to. It's typically at least one person that you can think of. It doesn't have to mean someone that you know personally, it could be someone in the public eye. I want you to really feel what's going on in your body when you think of this person. I want you to actually allow that frustration, that anger, or sadness, or whatever comes up for you. Feel into your body and just notice, where is that feeling? Maybe it's in the heart, maybe it's in the gut, really could be anywhere. And I want you to embrace this feeling just like you would embrace a small child who was having a tantrum. You want to place your hand on that area to maintain focus, feel free to do so. This is your pain. And this person who's driving you crazy is the perfect teacher for you so that you can integrate and heal this pain within you. So you can then be a clear vessel for source energy and love and be a harmonizer rather than a divider. If you don't know where it is in your body, just try the exercise anyway. Allow yourself to have that experience. Again, the fear, anger, grief, emotional level. If it's a physical sensation, maybe your neck tightened up, let it be there. And I'm going to ask you to breathe into whatever has come up for you rather than fight it or distract. And when you notice whatever is there, be curious. Isn't that interesting? As opposed to, this is wrong, this is broken, I shouldn't be feeling this. No, you're feeling it, so you should be feeling it. There's no shoulds. You're feeling it, period. And it's totally okay that you're feeling what you're feeling. And if you're more visual and energy focused, just stay with that. If you're more verbal, I'm going to ask you to repeat some of these words if they feel right to you. And when I use the word you in the upcoming few phrases, the you is referring to this part of you that is tight, that is angry, that is frustrated, that is sad. Repeat after me. I honor you. I see you. hear you. I embrace you. I honor everything you feel. I embrace everything that you say. I welcome all of you. Breathing. You may begin to notice a softening. This is what happens when we work with what is rather than resist or fight. Whatever was there, it might still be there, but maybe it's a little bit less. Maybe you feel a little bit more space in the area right now. Maybe there's a little bit more groundedness. We all know intrinsically life is going to work on life's terms. It's not going to change because we want it to. This is a internal manifestation of working with that concept, not fighting what we're experiencing. We typically do or don't do, say or don't say, to experience a feeling or to run from a feeling. And we run from the feelings that we don't like. While understandable, it's not honoring the totality of you. We all have equal capacity for fear, for love, for anger, for silliness, for sadness, for joy. And when we repress any of those parts, we can't thrive. Our energy flow is decreased. We're just not healthy, typically not happy, certainly not content. So for me, this is a version of shadow work where we're embracing these parts of ourselves that we don't want to be seen. Because, as per the original wounds conversation, we were never given space to show our fear, our anger, and our grief. And emotions are reciprocal. So if we're not working with the shadow and honoring that those are parts of our experience, we're less able to feel the opposites: joy, connection, contentment. So slowly begin to bring yourselves back, opening the eyes, maybe wiggling the fingers and toes, and just notice what you're feeling in your body. Even just a few minutes of going with what's there can be incredibly empowering, can be healing, and can really integrate those shadow elements that we typically don't want to acknowledge. And this is the way, I believe, that we become whole, connected. We recognize from the mental level all the things we said earlier about the original wounds, that we're all wounded. How do we heal those? Well, in many ways, perhaps, but this is, to me, one of the most direct.
Mhm.
Honoring all the pain that those wounds bring up. And those wounds, as a lot of us know, continue. We meet a different partner with the same habits, for example, right? We get thrown into a situation that repeats itself over and over. The only commonality is that you were there. So these are unhealed wounds manifest. And
Mhm.
if we work with the energetics and the emotional aspects of these wounds by embracing, by honoring, it's a completely different dynamic. And energetically speaking, the exact opposite of resistance and fighting. What I believe is that the more we can do this within ourselves, the more we can harmonize situations external of the self as well. So
Mhm.
healing is not just about the self, although that's obviously good motivation. It's recognizing that a more healed self means more healed world.
Mm,
We're always sending out energy in
yeah.
every direction. So again, we're going to go a lot deeper with this process in the course.
Yeah.
And my goal really is that everyone who signs up has this experience of really connecting with their true essence, because that's what's underneath all those ego and shadow places.
Mm.
We don't get to them by making them wrong or calling them names. We get to them and work with them in a loving, compassionate way.
So beautiful, Dave. And I want to really echo what you're saying, that this is a contribution to the whole as well. It's not just enabling us to then go out and harmonize or be empathetic, but I really believe it's contributing to the larger fields. And so much of the chaos is based upon unhealed traumas in people, that if we're doing that work, we're contributing to some little droplets of healing that larger whole, and that it adds up.
A long time
So,
ago, I intuited a phrase and I just thought it was so magical. It was be a speck of goodness.
hmm,
And I just love that because so many of us want to heal the world, but it's probably not within, I'll just speak for myself, it's not within my realm of not within my capability. But if I can keep sending out those specks of goodness, those specks of light, those specks of validation and connection, eventually I think we're going to get to where we really want to go.
yeah. I've been using a term kind of internally like islands of coherence. And so when you come into wholeness yourself, you're an island of coherence, and that coherence ripples out in a way that I think really does touch people in ways that it's kind of mysterious. So beautiful work that you're offering here, Dave. And I really think it's so helpful to make the best use of this moment where there's so much swirl and chaos and polarization, that it is a time for awakening and healing and transformation if we simply lean in with the kind of practices that you are offering. So I want to give people a chance now to learn more about your upcoming course and how they can participate and a bit more about it. So Dave has agreed to teach a brand new program for Shift. It's called Refuge for the Weary Empath. Cultivate empowered presence through the original wounds framework. You can find it at the URL refugeforwearyempaths.com, refugeforwearyempaths.com. It's a 7-week program. There are no prerequisites. It's just if you feel intuitively nudged in this direction, and you're warmly welcome to join. So, Dave, I'd love for you to share in your own words some of your intentions for this program. Then we can go through a tour of the modules and give a preview of what's coming.
Yeah, my intention is to be as centered and grounded as possible and to surrender to what needs to happen. So I'll be sharing information, of course, but we'll also be doing a lot of one on one and group healing work. And again, the idea is to be that island of coherence within ourselves, and to remember healing is not just about ourselves, that this time frame is really calling for more healed people to step up into their calling. And sometimes, that can be a little scary. There's a whole section in my upcoming book about being a more powerful leader. Some people don't want to be a leader, and that's okay. But I would just welcome that the word leader can have a lot of different definitions. It doesn't necessarily mean the person up on stage talking to thousands. It could be the leader of a household. It
Mhm.
could be the leader, leader of the pack or whatever.
I
You
think
know,
I think a healer is a leader of consciousness, and so
there you go.
a different way to lead.
Yeah,
So module one is called Your Sacred Container, creating the safe haven every empath needs.
yeah. We'll be talking about what are the circumstances that allow us to get past the mind and into the heart of the matter. And again, there'll be experiential exercises around that to really help facilitate that from happening. Because the mind has its place and it's okay. But I think we all know that the deeper wisdom is comes from within. And what I've noticed is without a sacred container, it's almost impossible to access that part. I mean, you got to be really, really experienced and really unattached to get there on your own. And the phrase "wherever two or more are gathered," that's what this is about: teaching people how to be their best selves and create that safe haven to allow their own essence to emerge, but also to really bring out the love in other people as well.
Mm. Module two, understanding the roots of societal discord through the original wounds framework to turn judgment into compassion.
Yeah, so we touched upon it a little bit earlier. It's so easy to judge someone who is doing something that we deem wrong. And the invitation is to get past that. It doesn't mean to condone negative behavior. Let's be clear about that. But it means to recognize that everyone's wounded. They're acting from that place. And by us getting really into our hearts, we can have more compassion for that person. It doesn't mean we have to forgive, certainly not in the traditional sense of forgiveness. Uh, it means we get an opportunity based on what comes up for us in response to what's happening, and use whatever's happening as information, as guidelines, as recommendations to really be the best selves that we can be.
Module 3, finding your unshakable center by healing spiritual separation and establishing divine reconnection.
Yeah, so this goes back to that first original wound of spiritual separation. And we often hear things like just do this or just do that. And there's so many ideas of how to connect. My thing is what's actually working and what's not working. I don't really want to wait for that magical someday. I want something a bit sooner. So I'll be doing a healing meditation to allow people to connect with the source on a much deeper level, and to also help remove obstacles that can make that connection more possible in their day-to-day lives.
Module 4, embodying peace in turbulent times by creating physical and emotional safety.
Yeah, so physical safety, obviously if you're in a situation where you don't feel safe, please exit that situation. um, Emotional safety, we want to create a container for all of who we are. And what I found is when we do that, we embody peace in a very different way. And what that does is allow other people to do so as well. I grew up thinking that if I made someone cry, I was a bad person. And now people pay me for it. It's a very strange world we're in. Um, but I
Got a
know
skill.
that,
You've got a skill. You
I guess, I make people cry. I make people feel horrible. I know underneath that, I know through experience and teaching this so long, is that peace that we're all searching for. That peace and contentment is underneath, it's already within us, right? But we're so busy searching for it, running for it. Is it over here? Is it over there? And I just think we need really basic and simple guidance to get to that place within our own selves, to feel safe in the world, and to really access that inner peace and then bring that out into the world.
Mm.
It's going to be a lot more healing than bringing our anger out. And again, that doesn't make the anger wrong. It's just an invitation to use it in a healthier way.
Module 5, cultivating authentic expression, speaking your truth to invite genuine connection.
Yeah. So I'm sure you know a lot of people that are in this world, this metaphysical experience, often have throat chakra issues. And that's because we were taught that it wasn't okay to speak our truth when we were younger. It's very easy for someone else to just say, well, just, start speaking your truth. It's not so easy, but there are blockages to that. And when we work with those blockages, authentic expression becomes a given, where we can have those difficult conversations, where we're less attached to what comes back. And it's just a matter of speaking one's truth, being so firm and so in touch with one's truth that you can speak it. I think even more importantly is you can embody it. So we're working with a lot of throat chakra things then. And of course, there's a lot of physical things that are wrong, right? That are wounded in the throat chakra. So we'll work on a lot of those that on that week.
Module 6, the empath is harmonizer, moving from powerless to profound healing and strength.
Yeah. So the word powerless, I think, is really powerful. That's kind of ironic sentence, actually. But going back to what we're talking about, shadow, there are certain things that we don't want to feel. Most of us want to feel that we have some kind of power to make some kind of change. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I found is feeling of powerlessness from the original wounds, that we don't have a lot of power when we're first born. We feel helpless and hopeless a lot of times to get those needs met. So, meeting and working with powerlessness, helplessness, and hopelessness actually creates more space. We typically don't want to feel those things, but through very safe exercises, we're going to actually befriend those parts of ourselves. And I know that, it was one time a few years back, I just felt like I couldn't do. something about something that was happening. I just felt really powerless. It felt horrible. But when I let myself have the feeling, I got intuitive guidance. I got someone's name to call. I just got exactly like step by step what to do. And I think it really came from befriending the part of myself that I didn't want to acknowledge because the ego kind of gets in the way, right? It says, no, no, I'm powerful. I can do this and I can do that. And well, maybe you can, but wouldn't it be more powerful? It was coming from a different place, a more centered place.
And finally, module 7, the new leadership, healing your empathic nature to influence the world with cooperation, compassion, and unity.
Yeah. As we do our work, and of course, we'll do a lot of this in the course, we can bring a different version of ourselves out into the world. And if you're not turned on by that, if you're really introverted, that's okay too, because then your energy can exude a different vibration and affect people as well. We know that cooperation is more powerful than competition. And that doesn't mean that professional sports or anything like that are bad, are bad. We have that as part of us, our competition. But how do we use that? And when it's used to dominate, when it's used from a place of trying to have power over someone else, it's never going to be healthy. So cooperation, we know, is going to be more effective. Everyone has a gift. One of my favorite phrases is there are 8 billion people on the planet. If we were meant to go at it alone, there would be 8 billion planets, one person each. So we're designed for cooperation. Our heart is the seat of compassion. And unity, I think, is the ultimate goal. And as we become more one with ourselves, we can then bring that message out. So some people will get guidance intuitively from that module. How do I bring my more healed self out into the world? It may be write a book. It might be start a podcast. It may be start the next version of the Shift Network. It could be anything, but it also can be a lot more subtle. So we'll get clarity on how to be an authentic and powerful leader in that module, how to bring everything that we've been learning in the prior 6 modules, how to bring that out into the world in alignment with your gifts. Right? I do believe that everything we've done sets us up for where we are and where we're going. So if you learn Spanish, for example, in high school, right, that is a seed. That's a wisdom. It's a knowledge that you can then use. Just a random example. We get so much information in our short yet sometimes seemingly a very long time here on earth. And when we can really unify all of that and use all those gifts, everything we've learned, and bring that out into the world, I think eventually, if enough people do this, I think we can create a very big difference. Potentially peace, certainly more cooperation en route to peace. But a lot of it happens from being peaceful from within and inviting cooperation, inviting other people's points of view, having conversations that might be difficult. That's how we create compassion, to get to know someone on on a heart level. I want to know what people are feeling. I want to have compassion for them. I'm not going to take it on, like we spoke about earlier. I'm not going to absorb what people are sending me, but I'm going to notice it and use that to inform who I'm being, whatever is needed in that moment. One of my favorite phrases is a question, which is, who or what can I be in relationship to what's occurring right now? So there's an invitation to presence in that. And there's an invitation to surrender the ego part of me that says, I have to fix this, to something much greater than myself. And then working with that energy and then sharing that information with people.
Very wise. Well, Dave, what a blessing to have this program right now in this moment in our collective too. So again, the whole program is laid out in more detail at refugeforwearyempath.com. In addition to the 7 90-minute live sessions with Dave, which is we're going to have plenty of opportunities to ask your questions live and really get nuanced, deep answers. You also get recordings for every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts. There are weekly practices you can do at home. There's a Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience. And on the page, you'll also see a number of great extra bonuses. There's 10 musical audio tracks from Dave called Child in Me, Lullaby. What a sweet bonus to include. Dave, you want to share more there?
I would love to. Years back, it might be hard to imagine. I was kind of a rocker, right? I had long, curly hair. I played music loud and aggressive. And of course, it was my anger at the world being manifest through music. And my niece, who was about 5 years old at the time, asked me to play her a song, to help her go to sleep. And I didn't know any lullabies whatsoever, but there was an acoustic guitar there, and I picked it up, and I think I just channeled something that was just magical. And the walls were moving. She was slowly falling asleep. It was just an incredible moment that really showed me the power of energy and being soft and how it can affect other people. And just as her eyes were closing, she said, "Tell Uncle Dave I said thank you." It's like it just hit me in such a powerful way. So I said, this can't be just for this moment. So I made an album years back. We used to call them CDs. It was around the year 2000. And it was just a series of guitar tracks that you can use to help you go to sleep or meditate. And, it's just kind of showing up again. I had no plans of doing this. It just showed up, and Spirit said, "Yes, this is what you can give to the world. It's another aspect of my divinity through music."
Beautiful. What a beautiful offering from your heart to everyone. A second bonus is on the page there, which is actually a PDF ebook excerpt of Refuge for the Weary Empath, which is deepening the themes that we've heard today. And the final bonus is a live bonus session, which is called Sacred Space, an intuition-led gathering, which I love the sound of. So there's no structured curriculum. You're just going to tune in and see what wants to be spoken. Is that what's going on with that bonus, Dave?
Perfectly said. Yeah, I go with no agenda whatsoever, as empty as possible. Feel the room, and of course, there's conversation. A lot of people do need like one-on-one support, so there'll be time for that. Probably in most of the modules, we'll be doing that as well, and then some group work as well. So what often happens is it's pretty amazing that I see this so often that when one person voices a concern, everyone else in the room is like, "Yeah, me too." Right? So it's not just for that person; it's for the
Mhm.
whole group. So then we'll do maybe a group healing exercise around that too. But yeah, it's just going in zero agenda other than being as loving as I can be.
Well, what a beautiful offering, Dave. And I know from all your previous courses, people give you rave reviews, and so grateful to have your guidance and wisdom for empaths around the world. So it's going to be a really blessed program, and we've kept the investment very accessible. It's just three payments of $128, or you save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start July 15th and runs Tuesdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community. Some beautiful testimonials on the page. And it's just, I encourage you to tune in with your own heart. And if you have the intuitive nudge to join, you're warmly welcomed. And I'm sure it's going to be a really blessed journey for you. So again, it's all at refugeforwearyempaths.com, and you'll get that special bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight of Sacred Space, in intuition-led gathering. So Dave, beautiful hour. Thank you for your wisdom. Anything still on your heart that you want to share with folks who are considering doing the course with you?
Well, first, appreciation to you and everyone at Shift Network for creating this opportunity. I think it's just a beautiful thing that you add to the collective. And you said it well. Like, listen to your intuition. Some people might be listening right now and say, "Oh, that's too much money. I can't afford it." And the natural reaction would be, "Well, you can't afford not to take this." But I think you can see from how I work, that's not where I would go. I would say, honor the feelings, honor that fear if that's what's coming up, honor that whatever it is, honor that, and then integrate that. Allow that to be there. Befriend that, because underneath that is your divine essence. Underneath that is your deepest truth. And that's where you'll get that intuitive nudge to sign up for this course.
Mm, beautiful. Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you all for joining. Look forward to seeing many of you in this upcoming course, and thank you for your time today. Many blessings.
Thank you.